Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome. My name's Dan. We're live on Facebook. It's great to have you with us. I'm joined by two guests. Why don't you guys come on and say hi? Wherever you're joining from, why don't you comment below and let us know? We'd love to hear from you. My name's Dan. I'm going to be taking you through this evening, and I'm joined by Lauren and a special guest, LT. Round of applause for LT. Whoop, whoop. All one of the people watching are going wild on Facebook, LT and Lauren, because you've joined us tonight. So why don't you guys say hi?
Hi.
Nice to be with you.
Great to have you with us. Why don't you comment below and let us know where you're watching from. This is HCO Church, Sunday Night Live, and it's great to be back. We haven't done this for a little while, so I'm very excited. As you know, I was going to be joined by Alex tonight, but she's not very well. So can we have an R from you guys?
Oh.
LT?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, on cue. Oh, that actually disappointing because it means we have to listen to you more.
It is annoying. The great news is that Alex is going to be H3O official tonight, so she's going to be commenting and she'll be involved. But you're right, you do need to hear more from me tonight. Otherwise, it might be a bit awkward. Tonight, we're thinking about the intentional life and the narrow path. We've just done this series as a church, so we're going to be going on this journey together. But before we start, we thought we'd have a bit of fun and play a bit of a game. Firstly, what snacks or drinks have people got tonight? I've got a very cheap glass of Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc, which I put ice in, which has now melted. So I've got an awful glass of wine, but it's cold. What about you, LT? What you got?
I've got a glass of water, mate. Just wild. Sky juice.
Sky juice.
That's it.
David's tuning in from DY. Tell us what you're drinking, David. Lauren, what have you got?
I could say it's water, but it's actually G&T.
Oh, you and my wife are so alike. Well, it's great to have you with us. And again, just comment below, let us know where you're tuning in from. I'm sure one or two will join us. One of the things we do say is that sharing is caring. So if you share our live stream tonight, more people get to see it, more people will tune in and more people will join the conversation. So why don't our panel even do that now? Why don't we just share on our walls and let people know that we are live? There we go. Cool. So the game I wanted to play at the start was really simple, just why people are tuning in, which is to guess the age of our panel. We're going to guess the age of our panel tonight. Now, guys, I don't know how you feel about this. Have you ever played a game like this before?
No, I don't know. I don't think so.
Yes, I'm already nervous. I hope you're not asking me to guess your ages.
You're going to start with Lauren, if that's all right. So we'll start with me. It's really simple because I'm easy, but we also want people to play along online. So what you need to do online is type in Dan, my age, LT, what you think his age is, and Lauren, what his age is. But I'm going to start with you guys. So you need to guess how old I am, and I'm going to do this if you need to go up, which I'm assuming you're going to need to do, or this if you need to go down. In fact, if you need to go down, I'm going to walk out because I'll be very upset. So
45.
45?
You deserve that. 35.
I'm going to say 34.
Oh, Lauren, you nailed it straight away. LT, I'm slightly disappointed in you. Lauren, what about you? How do we play this? Like, because we post all that weird stuff like a man can't ask a woman her age. Like
yeah, that's right.
I feel like we're over that now as a society, so we're just going to go for it.
You've just made us over it, just like that, Dan.
Yeah. So we haven't had many guesses coming online, so we're gonna carry on. So I'm going to say you're about 22, Lauren. I'm going to start at 22.
Based on my level of maturity. Yep.
Yeah,
that's a very safe guess, Dan.
22.
I think you can go a little higher considering I have a almost 5-year-old now, so it's probably safe to go a little higher.
Where I grew up, it's completely normal. LT, what about you? How old do you think Lauren is?
32.
You can go a bit higher.
Oh, okay.
I know she's married an older guy. Is it like 30, 36? Too much?
What, Ewan?
No, you.
Oh, me. No, higher.
Oh, goodness me.
38?
A little bit higher.
39.
Mhm.
Oh wow, it's all happening next year.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, big.
The borders will be open and can go somewhere.
Now I've saved LT till last because when I found out, this is going to ruin it a bit. When I found out how old LT was, I got very excited because he's much older than he looks. Basically, that's the giveaway. So just LT, I'm sorry to see this. Just come up to the camera just so you can get a good look. There you go. Look at that. Look at that face, right? So let's play the game. So I roughly know how old you are. So Lauren, you go first.
Okay, so you mentioned, now I've got to try and put the clues together. You mentioned that you've got daughters and they're away at the moment. So I'm assuming they're old enough to go away on their own. I'm going to guess.
One of them's with their mother, so sorry. That
Oh, okay,
that
not
was,
good. Okay.
yeah. Just to give the full clue.
48.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Oh, higher. Okay.
Yeah, it's high. 52.
Okay. What?
51. 50.
49? 50.
It's 50. I mean, how unbelievable is that, Lauren? Look at it, it's phenomenal. So for the rest of the night, we're going to call you Peter Pan. You're like the kind of you're the young guy. You've got all the wisdom, and then you've got like just such youth. I mean, what do we do? Look at me. I had a really tough paper round, obviously, because I'm the youngest among you, but feel like the oldest. So that's a game we played. I don't know how it went, but Mel's just joined us. Hi, it's good to have you with us. We're going to get straight into it tonight. Tonight we're thinking about the intentional life and the theme of the narrow path. One of the things we like to do with the online live stream is something called Lectio Divina. LT, what is Lectio Divina? Why don't you tell us? Because you're.
Oh no! Don't do that to me, mate. I couldn't capture it in a sentence or two. Sorry, that's disappointing. I know, but
no, that's all right. It's kind of like special or divine reading, like holy reading. And the idea behind it is we read a passage of scripture more intentionally, slowly, and allow it to wash over us, and different parts of it speak to us. And I remember when someone was teaching me about Lectio before, they said to me, like, allow yourself to be appropriately distracted. It was a good job they said appropriately, but allow yourself to be distracted and see where the text takes you. And often in my life, I found that really helpful because sometimes the crazy things that are going on in my head, or those kind of super creative or weird things, actually God might be speaking through them. So whether you go to church or not, like whether this is completely new to you, we'd love you to join in. We're going to be reading from Matthew's Gospel, which is kind of in the last bit of the Bible. Matthew's a good place to start if you've never read the Bible, because it's kind of all about Jesus's life and it's really detailed. So we're going to be reading from Matthew chapter 7, verses 7 to 19, and Alex is going to post it in the comments below. So Matthew chapter 7, verses 7 to 19. And we're going to read this passage through twice. And I'm going to begin with my panel, and we're just going to say one word or very short phrase that jumps out at us. One word or short phrase that jumps out of us. And then we're going to invite you to do the same below, and then we're going to share that live as you'll be doing. Then we're going to read it again, deliberately, slowly, and look out for an elaboration on that. Like, why did that passage speak to you? Or maybe you want to change to something else. That's completely fine. But tonight we're thinking all about the intentional life and the narrow path. If you've just joined us, I'm joined by LT and Lauren, a wonderful panel, and we're going to do a bit of Lectio, which is like kind of special reading the Bible. So have either of you got that passage up? Would you be up for reading it to us?
I can get it up. What was the passage again? Matthew
7 to 19. Yeah, Lauren, why don't you start with us?
Yeah.
So we'd love to hear your one word as Lauren reads this to us. Why don't you respond below by saying what word or phrase jumped out at you?
7 to 19, did you say?
19, that's it, yeah.
Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives. The one who seeks finds. And to the one who knocks, the door will be opened. Which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake? If you then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him? So in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets. Enter through the narrow gate, For wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. Watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. By their fruit you will recognize them. Do people pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Likewise, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus, by their fruit, you will recognize them.
Thank you so much, Lauren. So we're not going to say too many words, but what we want to invite you to do is write below a word or a phrase that jumped out of you from the passage. And LT, do you want to start?
Fruit.
Fruit, thanks. I had false prophets. Lauren.
The narrow gate stood out to me.
The narrow gate. Well, if you've just joined us, we'd love for you to comment below. We're reading Matthew chapter 7, verse 7 to 19, and we'd love for you to respond with one word or phrase from the passage that jumped out at you. This is taken from the Sermon on the Mount, and it's the words of Jesus himself. You know, Gandhi said that this Sermon on the Mount is one of the most profound bits of writing ever written, and Gandhi himself wasn't even a Christian. So we'd love to hear from you. Why don't you comment below and let us know what word or phrase jumped out at you, and then we're going to read it again once through in a minute. And LT, if you could get ready to read it, that would be great. So we've got a few people online. They're a little bit shy tonight, I need to let you know. But we'd love to hear from you. Why not comment below? Everyone. Laura said, everyone. Tuning in from the UK. Good to have you with us, Laura. Everyone who asks receives. Everyone. And we'll just wait a few more moments, see if there's one or two others, and then we'll hear the passage again. And when we read the passage through a second time, we're going to ask you to elaborate in the comments on what you think God might be saying or what jumped out at you. So LT, Matthew chapter 7, verses 7 to 19.
Ask, it will be given to you. Seek, and you'll find. Knock, and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives. The one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks, the door will be opened. Which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake? If you, then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him? So in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets. Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. Watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. By their fruit you will recognize them. Do people pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Likewise, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus, by their fruit, you will recognize them.
Thank you, LT. So if you've just joined us, we're doing Lectio Divina, which is divine reading, holy reading of the Bible, where we read it slowly, intentionally, and repetitively. So we've read it through twice tonight. And we've had a few more words come in just while you were reading. So which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Came in from Mel. Thanks, Mel. And Alex says seek. So thanks for that, Alex. So what we'd love for you to do now is elaborate. What do you think this passage is saying, or why did you pick that phrase? And if you could write that below, we'd really, really love to hear from you. I can go first. I was thinking a bit about false prophets, because I read this passage through a few times this week, as I knew we were doing it today, and I didn't just want to put in a bit about the narrow gate. I kind of wanted to pick the bit either side. But to be honest, I'd just been reflecting on the narrow gate and what it means to walk this narrow path. But the bit about the false prophets jumped out because it just comes right after, like, beware of false prophets. And it just reminded me at the moment, with all the stuff that's going on in our world, and I don't want to be too political, but I'm sure you can think of what I'm talking about, like with certain elections coming up, that there's just so many people that are claiming to be something and actually they're not. And so that was just in my mind. I don't know about you guys, like what was it for you? And if you're tuning in at home, why not comment below?
I guess for me, yeah, I always get drawn to the image of the narrow path, but the bit that really stuck out for me tonight was that this path leads to life, and it's worth it to walk this narrow path, even though it might be harder than the path that everyone else is taking, because it's worth it, because it leads to life. So that's what stuck out tonight.
Thanks so much, Lauren. It's good. And we'll be exploring that a lot more later. Thanks. LT, how about you, mate?
Yeah, definitely fruit. Partly because I bring that to the passage, because I've been sort of just really, that's been on my mind and heart for I don't know, a couple of weeks now, the idea of fruit. And so it's interesting, isn't it? Everyone displays fruit. That's the assumption there. So whether you're on the narrow gate or you're not, you do display fruit. It's just whether it's bad or good. It's inevitable. So I guess that's the thought.
Yeah, and it's really rich imagery, isn't it, for like kind of a community of people that were probably used to growing their own food, or at least interacting firsthand with the people that had grown their food. Whereas today we go to Coles, we don't normally meet the grower or the person that's really selling it. But yeah, I can relate to that. You always get this image of someone kind of looking through the apples. I don't know if you've ever done that, where you kind of like pick the right ones and discard the others, or avocados is probably the modern day equivalent of just finding the ones that are just right. But we do forget about the bad fruit, don't we? And I always shy away from kind of legalism and unhelpful pictures of church, which are about restricting and telling like people something that's unhelpful. But it's there, isn't it? It's there in the text, and these are Jesus' words. Just going back to that idea of the narrow path, I mean, just as comments are coming in, I wonder what that's about. Like, what comes to mind when you guys hear that narrow path?
Doing the things that aren't necessarily easy, doing the right things, the hard things that, when it would be easy to choose maybe what's not right, or what doesn't require as much courage.
Yeah, thanks, Don.
I'm just going back to the fruit thing as well. Like, it's categoric. You either have good fruit or bad fruit. And again, it's you're either on the narrow path or you're not. I'm just struck by that. And one, there's the destruction or there's life. There's nothing in between. So that really strikes me. But I feel initially I feel burdened by that. But then as I think about it, I'm thankful that Jesus is the entry point and ongoing reality of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like that. And that is, it's hard and easy at the same time, right? And that's kind of the paradox of a lot of Jesus' teaching. On the one hand, it's like the easiest, best option, and yet it's really difficult. And I feel like he plays with that imagery quite a lot. I suppose the other thing that came to mind for me was we were lucky enough to go to Israel a couple of about a year ago, actually, before we came to Australia. And I was really struck by Jerusalem when you kind of went into it, because we stayed in, as you do, like we try to find the most hipster place just outside the city. Alex found it, so it was a really good Airbnb, and so we stayed there. But yeah, I can't remember what it's called. But then, so we walked. The first day we walked into the city. It was probably a 30-minute walk, and as we walked in there, like the roads almost got narrower and narrower. And you kind of found this main road all the way around the old city. And then the old city had all these like really thin, just kind of tiny roads into it, and these tiny gates. And so you got this kind of like one of the most famous places in the world, and there's these tiny little gates to get in. And so people are kind of like funneled in because it's really, really busy. And it strikes me that when Jesus is saying these words and he's talking about the narrow gate and the narrow path, people could see that, right? People could see that stuff. Like they could picture what that was like, that this idea of being squashed together as you go through that narrow path and it being hard. And actually, if they just made a much bigger gate, it would have been easier. Yeah.
It's interesting to play off between what he says, verse 8, for everyone who asks, and then verse 14, only a few find it. Yeah. But also it was on my mind that, yes, it does seem like it's hard, the narrow path, but then again, the words of Jesus in terms of come to me, and find rest, and my yoke is easy. It's just, yeah, Jesus it's the mystery of all, of all that constantly. You just can't, you've got to hold those together all the time. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, big cliche, but you can't put Jesus in the box. And so you just wrestle with what he is, what he says.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I had this mentor who used to always say to me that Jesus is consistently inconsistent in how he responds. And I feel like if you're looking for a pattern, it's the inconsistency. And you have to be careful saying that. Some people can say like, oh, Jesus isn't inconsistent. Like, you can't say that. That's not what we're saying, but he's so self-aware and so aware of everything that's going on around him that he's able to adapt and respond to each different context. And yet at the same time, there's a consistency in that, right? And that consistency is love, is his pointing people towards himself and towards God, which is beautiful.
Hey, have you thought about, Dan, whether this passage is Matthew's version of Jesus' words of I'm the way, the truth, and the life?
Yeah, say more about that.
Oh, just the what is it? Inclusive exclusiveness of Jesus' claim. Like, everyone comes. I am the way is an invitation, but there's only one way. There's only one narrow. The gate is narrow. So I just wonder whether this is
and he's great. I like that. And it's interesting, like this is in there, and it's in the Sermon on the Mount. These are like, this is his kind of seminal moment as Matthew records it, and of course we see an account of this in Luke, slightly differently, but yeah, these are those words. Alex says she loves the idea that the path requires courage. Thanks for that, Lauren. And so there's something about requiring intentionality and trust. And Laura says the idea that something is narrow. I'm going to read that again. The idea that if something is narrow, we are going to have to put things down in order for us to fit on that narrow path. As you guys were saying, it reminded me of the time that Jesus says it's easier to get the camel through the eye of a needle, the gateway into Jerusalem, than a rich man to enter heaven. There'll be a cost and a sacrifice to being on that narrow path. But as you say, it's the best way for us. Thanks, Laura. It's great to have you with us. One of the gates, the eye of a needle, is kind of like double layered, and almost when I read it when I was a kid, I was like, oh, it's quite difficult for a camel to get through the eye of a needle, but it's actually where we get that phrase from. And the camel would have to get down on his knees and kind of duck down to get through this gate. So, yeah.
Nice camel impersonation, Dan.
You like camels can't limbo, so they have to. I know a young man like you, LT, and like you just be straight under it, wouldn't you?
Mate, don't turn that on me. Like.
Anyway, if you've just joined us, we're thinking about the intentional life, the narrow path, and we're going to be exploring that with some themes that we've looked at over our series. But I'm joined by LT, the Peter Pan of church in Sydney, and Lauren Saunders, who's just wonderful, who I want to be like when I'm older. So it's good to have you guys with us. And remember what we always say, sharing is caring. So feel free to share this post, but also comment below. We love your comments and engagement. So we're going to hear about LT and Lauren in a few moments, kind of what they do when they're not live on Facebook, though this is the most important part of their week, of course. But before we do that, we've been doing this series on the intentional life, and tonight's the last bit of it. We're kind of landing it with this live stream, and we were quite deliberate about some of the topics we chose, and Alex is going to post those topics below, the ones we looked at. And what we're going to try tonight, because we really want some engagement, is to get you to vote on what topics you'd like us to talk more about. So if you say, I want you to talk more about such and such, we'll talk more about that and try and explore that a bit, and feel free to ask us questions. So I'm going to read out what those topics are that we've covered over the last 8 weeks or so in house church and in our mini talks and in our conversations, and then we'll have a little chat about all of them. So the topics are rest, hospitality, curiosity, vulnerability, confession, justice, parenting, and evangelism. Rest, hospitality, curiosity, vulnerability, confession, justice, parenting, and evangelism. So LT, if you could just summarize all of them for us, that would be great.
Sure. It's in this book here I've got. It's a good summary.
It's really good. It's really good.
Yeah.
You're a good Sydney Anglican. I like that. Get it.
Oi.
I've not seen one of those real Bibles for a while. Like that was a paper copy. It's nice to see. So Alex is going to post the topics below. We'd love for you to vote on which one you'd like us to talk about. So just comment below with the topics you want us to think a little bit about, and we'll get started. But before we do that, starting with Lauren. Lauren, what do you do in the daytime when you're not on the live stream?
I divide my time between the day job, which is I'm a data manager for an agency of New South Wales Health. So it's looking at lots of spreadsheets with intensive care unit data. And then I balance that with parenting to almost 3-year-old and almost 5-year-old. Just keeping life going for the family, for the household.
You've been doing a renovation recently, haven't you? I think you just need to turn it around quickly so we can see your new kitchen.
Oh, okay, hang on.
You're not on a desktop, are you?
I'm on a laptop, hold on a sec.
So this is the new kitchen. Look at that. It's just beautiful, and we won't make you do it, but the best part of it is the tiling, and that's the bit Lauren did. So have a look at the tiling.
Yeah, I learned a new skill in this renovation. I can lay floor tiles. I wouldn't quite attempt wall tiles. I don't think they'd stay on, but floor tiles, yep, gravity's helping.
Happy days.
Impressive.
Mel says she's a data scientist too, so Mel comes to our evening, so you guys can
I have to
chat data science at some point.
Talk spreadsheets.
Yeah, I might leave you to it, actually. No, sorry.
And we'll see all the viewers drop off very quickly.
LT, what about you? Tell us what you do. You got a mixed.
What I do, what I'd like to do, I'd like to be a professional cyclist, but I'm not a professional cyclist, unfortunately. Husband, dad of 3 girls. Sienna's 20, Sade's 17, and Pascal's 14. And my main role that I'm paid for is working for a ministry called Katoomba Christian Convention. And I'm called the Director of Church Partnerships, which means I get to catch up with, lots of amazing church leaders and tell them about what God's doing through the ministry and invite them to be a part of it. And then on the side, I do some other things. You know, I mentor some young pastors formally. Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, thanks, mate. And just to like, I know I've been teasing you a bit, but LT came around the other day just to hang out with me and Alex without an agenda at all, and very humbly, in a non-pushy way, he just spoke like right into our lives. Like it really made us think and shift our kind of thinking a little bit. So we're really grateful for that. And yeah, thanks LT. And that's why I've got you on. You're a good guy, and also you're always on the live stream. In fact, it's really quiet on there tonight because we haven't got you commenting on it. So so we've had some votes coming in. So they want us to talk about parenting and hospitality. And yeah, if you want to tell us which ones of those topics you want us to explore, and we'll get into it. So the first thing we did was look at rest and hospitality. That was where we kicked off. So Mel, we'll go into hospitality in a moment. But the reason we started this kind of series with rest was, when you hear the phrase the intentional life, we don't want people to feel like, oh, there's a load more stuff I've got to do. Because sometimes church can be like that. Kind of, it's like you think, oh, I quite like the church. Maybe you like the pastor. Maybe you don't. You like the coffee. You go a lot. Feel really guilty about all the time, and then you go back, or the end of church, like, oh, I'm gonna go do that thing, and then you go back, you're like, oh, I didn't do it, I just feel really bad. And that's not what we wanted to do. We didn't want to create that. You know, we love that translation of the message where Jesus talks about unforced rhythms of grace. Like, we want this stuff to be easy and hard and life-changing. And so we decided to start with rest because we believe that it's really hard to rest well. So particularly at this time during COVID, where everyone feels like, oh, we've had all this time off, or we've been in this different place. Actually, people are knackered, like mentally, they're tired. There's all this stuff going on. So we've started on that. But I'd love to let's get straight into that. So hospitality is a gift. We read about it in the scriptures. We see it all over. I'd love to hear from you guys. And I think, like, Lauren, tell us about hospitality. So I came around your house the other day and saw the nice kitchen. And it was like, you could have just an effort in. It was lovely, but it felt welcome. So how do you practice this kind of hospitality piece, and what does that look like?
It's probably changed over the years. So back when we first got married, I would stress out whenever people would come around and worry that we'd had mess around or that we didn't have dinner on in time, and I would get really quite worked up. And Ewan's laid back. He'd be like, don't worry, it's fine if we're still cooking when people turn up. They're just coming to hang out with us. And I'd just get so worked up about having everything right and ready, and me being ready as well. And I guess over the years I've gotten better at being more relaxed about just opening a home as it is. And maybe it's just having kids and you can't keep all the mess at bay, and at some point you kind of just give up on things that aren't as important, and you realize that they're not as important. So yeah, practicing hospitality for me has kind of changed a bit, and I just kind of want people to come into my home and feel like they're at home, and they're not going to feel at home if I'm all stressed out and wound up. So yeah, I kind of tried to be more intentional about that, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. And it was funny when I came around, because like your husband Ewan's been busy on the renovation, and he had to go and pick up to go like as soon as he went. And I thought, like, why don't I just go with him? Like, I haven't had a chat with him for a while, and it meant we got to have a really good conversation. And it's that kind of that was hospitality, like that kind of presence, like I was met in that place. Like, the food wasn't men's, but I think that was what it was about. Like, it wasn't. I'm glad you pointed it out. LT, do you want to chuck anything in on hospitality?
I'm very fixated on the heart at the moment, and your inner life determines your outer life, obviously. But and so I guess my reflection is it's a heart posture to have a heart posture towards people that is welcoming of them. And that, obviously that looks different in each moment. But yeah, that's the only thing I would.
Yeah, and I think we looked at Mary and Martha in that space, that kind of idea of, like, where's Mary's heart at, where's Martha's heart at in that story. And if you've just joined us, this is Sunday Night Live with HCA Church, and we're just thinking about the intentional life and talking about hospitality. And in that story of Mary and Martha, kind of got like Martha's running around the kitchen, getting everything ready, like Lauren was alluding to a few years ago, and then and Mary's just sat at Jesus' feet, fully present, engaging. And it's interesting because he doesn't say that Martha got it wrong until she challenges Mary. Like he says, Martha, better part. There's nothing wrong with what Martha's doing, but Mary's chosen the better part, being fully present. And I think I could learn a lot from that. Yeah. All right, let's shift around a bit. So we've had vulnerability and confession as people want us to talk about that. Why did we pick vulnerability and confession? I'll just kick off with this. Initially, it was just confession, and we had a staff meeting, and I think Alex and Jan, I was like, oh, maybe it's a bit heavy to do confession. Alex and Jan said, why don't you do vulnerability? It just sounds a bit nicer. We don't want to be too like Bible bashy as Christians. And then we did vulnerability, and it was really great. And Alex did a really nice job of the mini talk. But I still felt like there was discontent there, and that vulnerability was really great, but that there was something about confession that wasn't this kind of legalistic thing that was freeing. But Lauren, you found that session particularly helpful, didn't you? Vulnerability. Do you want to just speak into that?
Yeah, I loved it, and I guess vulnerability is something that I've kind of been thinking a lot about this year, and trying to recognize opportunities to be vulnerable where I've got the choice to be vulnerable, as opposed to kind of putting up a front or pretending that I've got it all together, or just looking for opportunities to be real where I may not have. And so I really loved that session, and I've been thinking about it a lot since. And I just loved the story about the woman who'd been bleeding for 12 years. And just thinking about, just realizing and noticing things that I hadn't noticed before about the story. And it just struck me that, and stop me if I'm starting to ramble, but I'm just, struck me about the story that she was healed physically straight away when she touched Jesus' cloak. But then there was just more to the story, and there was more healing to come. And it was an act of courage for her to reach out and touch the cloak. But she could have just walked away after that point. But I just loved that Jesus turned around and said, "Who touched me?" And reading it again, I was just thinking, why would Jesus need to ask that? I mean, he's this all-powerful, all-knowing Son of God. Why? I mean, of course he knew who touched him. And I just love the fact that he knew that there was more healing that needed to be done. And and he invited this woman to take another step of vulnerability and another step of courage to kind of speak up and share her story. And that, she needed more healing beyond just the physical. And so I just really love this story about taking two steps of courage, and how her actions led her into even greater healing, and a fuller life. So I just love this subject of vulnerability.
LT, did you want to add anything?
I'm just happened to be reading this book called The Common Rule. And one of the practices or weekly habits is 1 hour of conversation with a friend. And it's all about vulnerability, a friendship. He says, friendship is vulnerability across time, which it was profound. We all see, and he says, we all seem to have a capacity to make ourselves appear okay while hiding something that slowly kills us from the inside out.
Mm.
And he says we can push back darkness, which is in our hearts and in the world, by bringing it into the light. You know, Jesus talks about that. And so the sharing of a secret that no one else knows with a friend is actually pushing back darkness. You know, I was just, really, that's very powerful, isn't it? It's just, yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
Last week I was a bit down. I was struggling a bit, probably with my mental health, I would say. And it'd been a year since we've been in Australia, and we had a really good friend's wedding that we missed. And found out that someone I got ordained with had passed away, and there was just a few things that had emerged, and I was just like, oh, this is really hard. Like, it affected everything. And I told a couple of people, and the funny thing was, like, before I told them, I was thinking, I don't want to tell them because they're going to make me do something about it. And actually, like, the first person I told was Alex, and she was just amazing, and like thanked me for telling her that I was feeling down, and I felt better. And I told a couple of friends, and it really helped, but I didn't want to do it. and it's that paradox again, isn't it? It's like almost that felt a bit like a narrow path, but the narrow path led. I'd love to put a bow on it and say everything was fine. It's never that simple, particularly with mental health, but it shifted something. And I began to push away that darkness. The confession piece, I'd love to sit with that a bit longer. And if you've got thoughts or comments, please comment below. We're just doing a whistle stop tour of the series we've been on and looking at different themes. And the confession piece, I suppose the reason we then revisited that and put it back in was we wanted to create space for the conversation at church. And a bit like you said, sharing with a close friend, like, we're not needing people to come online and confess a load of stuff, but and then I want to be so bold as to say that one of the things we perhaps lost at the Reformation with Catholicism is that confession. Like, I think the Catholics in some ways do this well. Like, it can be misunderstood or misconstrued, particularly if you're outside the church, but sitting confidentially in a little room with a curtain and actively speaking out some of those things is that, one of the things I shared I struggle with was pornography over the years, and I shared that in a mini talk, which you can go back and watch if you want. But I have a friend that we regularly check in with each other, like another guy who's a church leader, and we just message each other just to check in from time to time. And I know, like, a few years ago when I was really struggling again with it, like that really helped me. Like, that really helped me through that place. So yeah, have others had experience of confession in the positive sense of the word? It's quite a question you don't need to share personal examples.
Sorry, broke up a bit there. What was the question? Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Sorry, the internet was unstable.
Sorry.
Have you guys had experiences of confession, or perhaps practical advice around confession?
I guess for me, it's been similar to I guess the whole Catholic way of practicing confession. Over the years, I've sought out counselling, I guess, and yeah, for some mental health stuff and struggles that I've had, and just having a safe space where you can talk about the stuff that's going on inside, and practice that on a regular basis. It has made it easier to talk to like family members and friends, and just having that regular practice at doing something that's difficult has been really helpful, and it's been quite freeing and has led to deeper connections with people, and and a healthier life, I guess. And but just staying in that rhythm of confessing, and also confessing to yourself and putting things out into the world and saying it out loud is often quite helpful and freeing. So that's been my personal experience.
Yeah, there was a season of my life after I was diagnosed with a physical chronic illness, where my response to that, one of the responses that came out was anger, and linked just frustration, which was expressed in an unhealthy anger, which I hadn't really struggled with before. And people around me were trying to help me see that. My wife talking about, look, I think you're angry, and I'd respond by saying, I'm not angry, you're angry. She now says, well, she might have been as well, but it took a few months to then come back to her and own that for myself and say, have been saying I'm angry. Yes, I am. And so I think it's, again, that inner life of actually owning this for yourself and take responsibility for it so that you can name it to tame it. And it's something powerful in doing that with another person, doing that with God, which is putting that, which is, so I actually went to a counsellor as well, and it was the beginning of, work. It wasn't the end, it was the beginning of work. And I think sometimes we think it's the end in itself, but it's only the beginning as you own something and then work. Yeah, so that's definitely my experience. One of many things that I could share.
Yeah, thanks so much. And just let's just sit with that for a bit longer, like just practical stuff. I know you both have like creative leisure pursuits and stuff. Like, do you want to just speak a bit into that and how that shapes some of that stuff? I know it's not strictly around confession, but
I guess the creative pursuits for me are kind of a way of putting a bit of myself out into the world, and it's probably more on the vulnerability side of things, but sharing something that is real, that is from inside, that's not for any other purpose except just to share a part of myself. It's been a good practice to get back into this year. I'm not quite sure if I've answered the question at all, but I guess just the importance of sharing something real from yourself, and getting into that rhythm and getting into that habit. It just makes it slightly less terrifying if you do it on a regular basis, and for me anyway, it's made it a little easier to share other parts of myself that I might be afraid to share with others. So
Thanks, Lauren. That you definitely answered the question. It's really, really helpful. I think for me, like the sport thing's been really helpful. Just like I love playing football, which you love the Australians call soccer for some reason. And sorry, that wasn't we're in Australia, but for that 90 minutes or in that space, like you're not thinking about anything else, you're just focused in that one place, and you don't look at your phone, and that's really helpful. And it's that kind of space you're exercising, and you feel free almost. Like I relive moments of the game, I think hopefully positively, sometimes negatively if it didn't go that well, but because of the joy, there's that kind of like, oh, I'm kind of created to do this, like this is who I am. So yeah, I find that really helpful. Let's keep going, because I think one of the other ones that got voted for was parenting. So if you've just joined us, we're just doing a whistle stops tour through our series, The Intentional Life. We're thinking about the narrow path and the paradox of the narrow path being easy and hard, and how we walk with that. If you're new to faith, it's all good. You're really welcome, and we'd love for you to join the conversation. If you disagree, it's all good as well. In fact, it's better if you disagree. So emerged from the conversations. Why do we put parents? Statistics say, first of all, and I'm making assumptions, so I'll try and frame this helpfully. Statistics say that if you want your children to be Christians when they're older, if you be Christians, an unhelpful term, if you want your children to follow Jesus and experience this life, grace, and freedom that you believe you have yourself, that giving them the best start, parenting really, really well, pointing them in the direction of the faith of Jesus Christ is by far the best way. You could send them to the best church, the best youth group, and statistically, those things are in many ways irrelevant if the parents don't create space to demonstrate that. So I want to get straight into it practically, because I think you two are both great parents. Like, just tell us like one really good thing that you've done that points your kids towards Jesus, and one really bad thing. Or one thing that's not helpful. I'll start. This morning I've been experimenting with Isla. So I do really like trad liturgical morning prayers, because I'm still an Anglican priest at heart, and I get really angry when they get interrupted do them, so I'm not in the right place. But Isla, the other week I just said to Isla, because Alex was upstairs for the one day a week where I managed to get up before her, and I said, Isla, would you like to sit on my lap and I'll just read the prayers? And she said, yeah, I'd like that. And she sat there and I read the prayers, and I was like, wow, that was easy. All I did was ask. That was lovely. The other thing that wasn't so good was this morning when I had breakfast, I said shit really loud in front of my daughter, and then she repeated it. So but I just don't want you to be under any illusions of me all robed up, say these like chanting prayers. It's not like that at all. So but yeah, I do believe that, just like, I don't know, she just wants to hang out, right? And she wants that real time, that real presence, that hospitality, both ways. So yeah, so LT and Lauren, you guys go.
LT, do you want to go first? I'm still
not really. Not really. Oh, look, someone said to us, well, we had a tradition of going away at Easter time and going to a Christian convention, actually the one I now work for, and that was really crucial in the sense that our girls became known and had friends separately from their relationship to us, particularly to me as the pastor of a church. And I think those sort of long-term friendships that start early I know they've been important for me, and I wanted them for the girls. And so seeing what it is to follow Jesus apart from us and in a peer. So I think that's something that, yeah, we did well and has really helped. Oh, look, I think, again, you know, what I really didn't do well is just the classic incongruence between my persona as a pastor and my persona as a dad. Yeah, I always struggled with it, and yeah, I found that really hard to get right, and I don't think I did. It's been pretty vague. I'm sorry, but yeah.
No, LT, that's really really kind and helpful, and yeah, I could definitely relate to that. And I've got a few more years to go on that one, you know.
I mean, my mantra these days is parenting equals prayer. That's it. It just makes you pray on your knees constantly for, you know, saying, you know, praying for forgiveness for letting, you know, something out that shouldn't have come out, or, you know, just yeah. So
yeah, thanks, mate. That's great. It's really helpful. Lauren.
Yeah, I've had a chance to have a little think. I guess, I could probably sum it up in one little example. Each night I try and remember to pray for the kids when I'm putting them to bed. And yeah, and I try to make it a regular thing. And so this is just part of their life. And I invite them to pray as well. And sometimes they won't settle down, they won't be quiet when I'm trying to pray, and I'll lose my temper at them when I'm trying to pray for them, and and then 2 seconds later I'll be like, okay, that's probably not the right way to go about it. But yeah, I guess yeah, when I lose my temper at them, that's when I'm not modeling Jesus. But one thing that I have really tried to do and is to be real with them about when I fail, and to be quick to say sorry, because I want them to know that it's okay to make mistakes, and everyone does it, even their mum, even their dad. And yeah, and I want them to see me as human instead of this kind of authoritative. I mean, I still want them to listen to me, but I don't. Yeah, I want them to see me as human. And yeah, so one thing I've been really intentional about is saying sorry quickly when I realize I've done the wrong thing and lost my temper at them. So they've heard me say sorry to them a lot in their short years on this earth.
Thanks, Lauren. We're gonna finish in a few moments. If you just joined us, it's Sunday Night Live. Jan's just come on, so that's good. Jan's here. Hi, Jan. Welcome. Finish in a few moments, but we're gonna ask these guys to summarize, and I'm gonna give you a moment to think about it. If someone wants to walk this narrow path, what is the one bit of advice you'd give them? Like what do they need to know? Like what's the one bit of advice? And I know we've said a lot tonight. I can go first on that one, but just to say, I think the thing that I've come back to recently, I have this guy that mentors me at the moment, who's a bishop, and he's down in Watson's Bay, which is a tough place for Jesus down there, Bishop Stewart. He said to me, every time I talk to him, he said, "What's God saying to you at the moment? Like, what's blessing you at the moment?" And I'm like, "Whoa, that's quite a question." It's like, what's God saying to me? Like, get out of bed. I don't know. But the thing that I really wrestled with is this idea, like these words I got is, Dan, you are loved. Dan, you are loved. And even when I don't feel like, even when I'm addicted, broken, absolutely pointing myself in the wrong direction, like whether you believe in God or not, I believe that you are loved if you're watching this at home, like, you are loved, and there's life and grace and freedom found in this narrow path, which is really hard to walk, really hard to find a direction on. But whatever's gone on in your life, however broken you feel, however depressed you feel, however trapped you feel during this pandemic, you are loved. And I think, honestly, like, that's all I've held on to over the last few months, that I'm loved. LT or Lauren, you go. How do we do it?
I guess just knowing that you won't be walking it alone, knowing that, there'll be hard moments, and it's constantly trying and failing and picking yourself up again, but you're not going to be doing it alone. God's going to be walking it with you, and it's totally worth it to keep picking yourself up, because it leads to life, and incredible, abundant life. So yeah, it's worth it.
Thank you, Lauren. LT, close off with a mic drop moment.
Sorry, I hope, well, that's setting him up for a fall, isn't it? Thanks, Dan. The words of that guy, Martin Lloyd-Jones, come to mind, that, most of our problems are caused by the fact that we listen to ourselves rather than talk to ourselves. And so I know for me,
LT, sorry, say that again, just like, because I think we need to hear that a couple of times.
So most of our, I think this is right, it's LT's version of it anyway, most of our problems in life are caused by the fact that we listen to ourselves rather than talk to ourselves. And I think it's picking up on the idea, and I know this is true for me, we all have our own narratives that we live with, stories that we believe are true, that most often are true. So for my story, my narrative that I took on was that I'm not good enough. My school reports reflected that. My sporting results reflected that. My relationship, so that became my narrative even into adulthood. It was my first formation narrative. And so actually coming to Jesus, the narrow path, I discovered actually in him I am more than enough. I am more than enough. And God the Father sees me as more than enough as he sees his son, Jesus. So that's the narrative I've been given. Beautiful. And that's life. That's life. So I try and talk that to myself.
Guys, thank you so much. That's so helpful. There's so much there. Perhaps we could just tap that little phrase out in the comments, LT, if you've got a moment at the end. We're going to say goodbye to Lauren and LT. Thank you so much for what you've given tonight. We're so grateful for you guys. I'm just going to give a couple of notices and a final blessing as we go. But thank you for what you've given. We could have talked for hours. It's been a nice kind of chilled Sunday night vibe tonight. So we'll be back in about a month for our live stream again. But thanks for joining. Thanks for coming on, guys.
See you later. Church
would not be church without notice. So I'm just going to finish with a couple of notices as we close our time together. If you've loved hearing about this guy Jesus, haven't got a clue about what it's all about, we would love for you to try Alpha. Alpha is an opportunity to explore life, faith, and Christianity in a chilled out environment. And we've got a course starting in the next couple of weeks online with myself and some others, and we'll be taking you through. So you can come for the first week, you never show up again, follow you up. But we try it on Zoom because we think it's really easy for people to try. So Alpha, you watch a video and it's really fine to disagree with the video. We have a chat on to next week. So we'd love you to try that. And also, if you go to church and you're already into this Jesus thing, like, why not invite someone along? So the Facebook invite is going to be below. Alex is going to post that now. And it would really help us if you shared that and invited as many people as you can. The other thing to say is, as a church, we're in house church at the moment for this season, but we're going to keep doing the online if you'd like us to do that. So please keep engaging. We'll be on about once a month for this kind of panel, and looking forward to next month already. Other than that, we'd just love to finish with a final blessing. I'm a priest, it's kind of what we do. So here's a final blessing as you go about your weeks. And we pray in particular for those today. I know in New South Wales, stuff's starting to pick up, and things are pretty much opening up and moving towards being like they were before. In London and the UK are in lockdown. We know people in the US are in lockdown. We know that our friends in Melbourne are still under quite full-on restrictions, and so we pray for you at this time. And as we say this final blessing, we pray that you will be blessed. And so may Christ, the Son of righteousness, scatter the darkness from your path and make you ready to meet him again when he comes in glory. And so may the blessing of God Almighty, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit be among you and remain with you always, evermore. Amen. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been great having you with us. We'll look forward to seeing you all next time.